Hey folks, welcome along to today's vinegar adventures. This here is a bag of apple juice. It's about 3 litres in this bag. Just down here I've got a bucket full of 2 more 5-litre bags. I have a cider press and we've got orchards locally. So earlier this year I bought 200 kilos of apples, 440 pounds of apples, and I put them through the cider press. I got about 135 litres, which I think is something like 36 gallons of apple juice. I think in the US you call it cider because it's cloudy. In New Zealand it's all apple juice, it's only cider when it's alcoholic. So what we're going to do today, we are going to make an apple cider vinegar that has no added sugar. To do this, we're still going to make a vinegar that's got a 5% acidity, which means we still need an 8% ABV to start with. But we can't get that just off this apple juice. This apple juice has a specific gravity of 1.044, and to get an 8% apple brew we need 1.060. So how do we make this work? What we're going to do is we're going to concentrate it by boiling it. As it boils, the steam that comes off carries the water liquid, so that concentrates the flavour and it concentrates the sugar. So you can do this by freeze concentration as well. But we also have to take into account some other factors. When you cook sugar, which is what we're doing by boiling it, some of it becomes non-fermentable. In my calculations, I'm allowing about 20% of non-fermentables. So if I need to start with a 1.060 gravity to get 8% alcohol, I have to add 20% onto that. So that means I need a 1.072 specific gravity to start with for it to ferment out. There'll be some residual sweetness in this, which is going to make it taste really good. And the concentrated apple flavours are going to taste absolutely divine. So what we need to do is I need to very carefully open up this baggie, pour it into a pot, and get it boiling on the stove. So I'll come back to you when we're there. So it didn't take too long to come to the boil from room temperature. And oh my God, it smells incredible. The smell of just this concentrating apple juice is absolutely delicious. Anyway, we'll come back once it's down to the gravity that we need. Okay, we're done with this. So when I put the apple juice in, the 5 litres, came up to about there. Actually about there. So you can see how much it's dropped to concentrate it. So I wanted it to get to 1.072. And if you look at that, it's gone to 1.078, so it's a little bit higher, but that's absolutely perfectly fine. So we're going to take it off the heat now and let it cool down. Right, this is now cooled down. I took 2 litres out of the pot that was on the stove, stuck it in this jug, and I've had it sitting in a sink full of cold water. So this is now about 40 degrees, if that, which is the perfect temperature to give your yeast a good start. So that's 104 Celsius. We're going to put it into this flagon, which is a UK half gallon, and we're going to add some Modi 497 yeast to this. I think this yeast has actually already passed its expiry date. So what I've done is I have rehydrated it. All I've done is I've got a little bit of the apple juice while it's still warm. I have added a little bit of water to drop the temperature down just a fraction, and also dilute the sugars a little bit. And so I've put the yeast in here now, and it's rehydrated. It's foamed up a little bit, so I'm going to use it like that today. I just needed to check that the yeast was still alive. If the yeast didn't foam up in that mix, I'd know the yeast is dead, and I could then use a different yeast. So we're not going to muck around, we're just going to pour it into the jar. Now everything's been sanitized as always. Now I'm only going to pour half of this in initially so I can pour my yeast in, and then rinse out the funnel with what's left of the liquid. Right, so that's the yeast in. That looks good. And now we'll just pour the rest in. Righty ho. And that should have done a good job of stirring it. Well, that's perfect temperature. Pop an airlock on it. And once it starts fermenting, as always, CO2 gases will come up through here. They'll push this oxygen out, up through this S tube, through the water, and push the oxygen out, and the CO2 will escape as well. And that stops the bugs getting back in because this is full of sanitizer liquid. So we'll let this start to ferment. It'll probably take, I don't know, 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. It's a little bit higher percentage than normal. So we will come back to you in a couple of weeks and have a taste, because it smells gorgeous. That apple juice, when it's concentrate, is smelling so lovely, and it tastes so good. Just because it's really concentrated flavours. So I have high hopes for this batch, and if it works like I'm hoping it does, even though it's kind of wasteful on the apple juice, I'm really tempted to keep doing it this way. Anyway, I'll be back to you in a couple of weeks. This is my brewing area. What I've done with these, so these 4 are going to become vinegars. It's cold here. At the moment it is 15 degrees inside, which is 59 Fahrenheit. And these brews are just taking a very, very long time to do the fermentation stage. A lot longer than they should. And that's just because it's cold. We've had a bit of a cold snap. We're still in spring, so our weather's not exactly tropical. So they're just not fermenting out as fast as I would like. So what I've done is I've put them onto heat pads. This will bring the temperature up to about 25 degrees, which is 77 Fahrenheit. And that's a much, much better temperature for fermentation for these brews. So yeah, that's what I've done, is just to try and get them to progress, shall we say. Okay, this one's been sitting for about 2.5 weeks now. So let's check to see how it is progressing. Once again, everything has been sanitized. This was the one that we made from the concentrate. So it started with quite a high gravity. We were aiming for 1.060. We got 1.078. So we got very high gravity. It's currently sitting at 1.010. Let's write that down. 1.010. Let's work out what that was. So it started at 1.078 minus 1.0710 equals times 131.25, 8.92%. So we'll say 8.9%, so that's quite high. Right, so what we'll do is we are going to put it from here into the jug, measure exactly how much we've got, calculate how much of a mother we need to add, and go from there. So we're just going to pour that in. Now, apple does compact down quite well, so I am just going to pour this without straining it because that flocculation layer on the bottom should be fairly well compacted down. And if it's not, it will settle. Yeah, see, I'm just disturbing it. It will settle out as it sits, converting to vinegar anyway. We'll stop there. Alright, let's see what we've got. So we have almost exactly 2 litres. We could dilute this down to the 8% that we want. I can't be bothered. We're just going to add 500 mils. So we've got 2 litres, so we want 1/4, which is 500 mils. So I'm going to take it up to this line here. This is an apple cider vinegar I've previously made. There we go. Just give it a quick stir. Now, I don't have a wide mouth 2.5 litre jar. At the moment I'm running short of my wide mouth jars, but here's one that I've got. I think it's about a 5 litre jar. It's going to have to do, at least I can get my hand in if I need to. So I'm just going to pour this in. Cover it, and let's do some paperwork. So the 24th of October, tested at 1.010, inoculated with ACV MOV, which stands for mother of vinegar. So we have added an MOV of ACV, and that was 500 mils. Inoculation method was the mother. Final volume 2.5 litres. That's what we've done. And now we're going to just let it sit in the fermentation area for probably about 4 weeks, and then we'll test it to see how it's progressing. We'll test its pH and also the acidity by doing an acid titration test. And we're back. It's been a few months since I started this concentrated apple juice vinegar. In fact, it's been nearly 5 months since I started it. And it's been 4.5 months since I inoculated it with some apple cider vinegar mother. So today we're going to test it. Now, I would have done this a lot earlier, however, life has got in the way of me lately. So what we're going to do is we are going to do a taste test first of all. Then we're going to use a pH meter and test the pH of it. And then we're going to do an acid titration test on it to test the acidity and see what it comes out as. So first things first, taste test. I've got myself a spoon here. I'll sniff it. Oh, it certainly smells like vinegar. Tastes like vinegar. That's a good step. So what I'm going to do is just using a syringe. This is clean. Is just draw up. Put that into a little jar. And now I can get my pH meter out. Now I calibrated this earlier on today. We will turn it on. And rest it in the now this one is fairly slow. But it's slowly going down. At the moment it's at 3.0. We'll see how much further it drops down. Now I've got a piece of paper here just to take some notes, because I've got a plan. Right, I'm okay with that. So that's 3.03 pH. So, oh God, it's still dropping. But let's just say 3.0 for pH. So that's perfect. So now we're going to do acid titration. So this calculates what percentage of the liquid is acetic acid. Very much the same concept as alcohol percentage of an alcohol. So if you have 100 mils of vinegar, how many mils of that is actually acetic acid? So we are going to do the acid titration test. Now I'm not going to do the whole walkthrough of how to do it. I do have a video. I've got two videos. One video on how to set yourself up to do acid titration, and the other video is how to actually do it. So I will, well, the card is just up there, and I'll also put the links in the description box below so you can find those videos. So we will get on to doing the acid titration. Right, time to do some acid titration. So we need a couple of things. We need our vinegar. We need what's called an indicator solution. In this case, it's phenolphthalein. We need a testing agent, which is sodium hydroxide, and we need distilled water. Now I'm using what's called a magnetic stirring machine. You don't need one of these. You can just do it by hand, as I show you in the video that I've linked. The reason I'm using this is it's much faster, which is helpful for these videos, and it does a much better job of stirring it. You don't need one. You can buy them. They're probably $30, $40. You can get them at most homebrew shops. In New Zealand, they're about $65. But let's get started. I've measured everything out already, so it's quicker. So this is our vinegar. We need 2 milliliters of vinegar, 3 drops of phenolphthalein, 1, 2, 3. Now this doesn't cost much to set up and do. If you watch my video, you'll see what I mean. And we need 20 mils of water. So what we'll do is we'll turn our little stirrer on. You don't need a vortex, so you don't need to create a vortex. You just take it down just so it's stirring it consistently. So we'll take our syringe, and 1 drop at a time. What we're looking for is when it goes, the mix goes pink. You'll see it just tinges pink as we go. So let's see what we've got. See how it's now taking a bit longer for that pink to dissipate? That tells you you're getting close. And that's when you slow it right down. There we go. That's what we're looking for. So, what we do, we get a, oops, wrong way. We get our calculator out. And so, I don't know if you can see, this was a 3ml syringe, and there is, oh God, in this light it's very hard to read, 1/2 ml left. So it's used 2.5 ml. So let's do, now this is a stronger solution. This is not the exact solution that I've shown in the video. So the maths is a little bit different, but just bear with me. Whoo-wee! This is a 7.5% acidity. Wow. That is strong. No wonder I lost my voice for a bit. I don't want it that strong. I want it around 5%, 4 to 5%, somewhere in that range. So what I am going to do, if I dilute it with water, we lose that amazing apple flavour, because remember, this was a concentrated apple juice that we boiled down. I don't want to lose that flavour by diluting it with water. So, I've got a plan. Stand by. I will come back to you on that plan. And here's where we blend 2 videos into one. This is my concentrated apple vinegar. This is my apple scraps vinegar. And this is my store-bought juice vinegar. These 2 are in one video, this is in another. Now this here is 7.5% acidity. That's really quite high. This is only 1.5%. This is 6.6%. I would like to dilute this down. I'd like to dilute this one down. I'm going to use this. If I use water, I'm going to lose a lot of that beautiful apple flavour. Now, while this is only 1.5%, it was made using apple scraps. It's got a subtle apple taste, but it's not as bland as straight water. So what we're going to do is we're going to dilute these. So we're going to blend the 3 of these batches into one batch. But before we do that, we need to do some maths. This here is a calculation where we work out, so how many mils we've got of brew A, should we say, and what its percentage is, brew B and its percentage, brew C and its percentage. Divide that by the volume, and that will tell us what our overall percentage of acidity is going to be. So what we need to do is we need to measure how much we have of each. I'm going to put them all into this one jug because we're going to blend them anyway. But I'm going to zero it out as we go. So that way we know how much we have of each. So we'll start with the concentrate. All right, so this one here we're going with A. So volume is 1548 and its percentage is 7.5. So we zero it Now I'm going to use the store-bought juice. There was not much in that one. That was 182 mils, and that's a 6.6%. Now this one here, I'm going to strain it. I do, because I want to get that pellicle out. Now I know that this seems overkill, such a big strainer, but right before we go any further, let's zero that back out. Right, let's strain this. So inside this strainer, I have got a filter paper that you use for filtering like your cooking oils and stuff like that. You can use a coffee filter, 6 of one, half a dozen the other. This may take some time. Okay, that was 700 mils of 1.5%. So to do this calculation, the first thing I'm going to do is add up all of the volumes. So 1548 plus 182 plus 700 equals 2,430. Right. Yep, something along those lines. So now we do our calculation. So what I've done, by adding up all the volumes first, I've basically got myself ready for this bottom line. So what I'm going to do now is just do the maths across, A, B and C, and that gives us that. So 1548 times 7.5 equals 11610. 182 times 6.6 equals 1201. And 700 times 1.5 equals 1050. So volume A times percentage A, so volume A times percentage A equals that, plus, so now we just go that plus that plus that, divided by that. So let's do this maths. 11610 plus 1201 plus 1050 equals, so we'll just give our final thing, 13861 divided by our 2430 from our volume. So divided by 2430, and that gives us a final acidity of 5.7. Now that's still a little bit high, I'd like it a bit lower. Funnily enough, here's one I prepared earlier. This here is a cider. So it's apple juice, and instead of adding sugar to bring up the gravity, I added honey and then I fermented it. So basically this is an apple mead, and it's then been converted to vinegar. So I have 10.5 litres. This, I tested this earlier, and it is 4.5%. So we're going to do that calculation on a fresh sheet, and we're going to mix that there with this big lot. So let's work out what it's going to be. Now that we know all of our figures, let's work it out. Now the cider, we have 10.5 litres, no, 10.25 litres. Yeah, 10 1/4, so that is 10250, and I know that this is 4.5%. So I have to work that one out. 10250 times 4.5 equals 46125. So again, let's add up our volume. Now I know the volume on that one was 2430. We'll just go plus the 10250 equals 12680. Right, so what have we done? So pretty much the same as what I did on this sheet, I've done here. So apple concentrate. So now I've added up our volumes. All I have to do now is go plus, 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 add them all up there. And then down here, put this figure divided by this figure equals our percentage. So let's just do that math. So 11610 plus 1050 plus 1201 plus 46125 equals 59986. So 59986 divided by our volume will give us our percentage. 59986 divided by 12680 equals 4.73%. As simple as that. Now I think that's a pretty good percentage. Normally I aim for 5%. So 4.73 is not bad. You could still do preserving with that. So let's do it. It's as simple as pour this in, and what we can do is we can do an acid titration if we wish. And I didn't quite think that through with regards to volume. I'm going to have to get a bigger container. Actually, I knew this was going to happen already, and I already got the bigger container, I just didn't have it in place. Right, so I'm going to transfer all of this into here. And I'm definitely doing this off camera because this is about to get messy. Right, so it's all been transferred. It's got quite the head of foam on it because I ended up using the tap on that big 10-litre bucket. And so it got very aerated. I'm going to let this sit for a day or two just to settle out. I did the acid titration test on it and it worked out to be 4.5% all up. So 4.73 is what the maths said, but that obviously is based very much on a loose measurement of the big quantity of cider vinegar. I just said it was 10.25 litres. It may have been plus or minus a little bit. It was probably a little bit more. And so the science, the math says 4.73, the science says 4.5. I'm going to go with the science and say that we have approximately just over 12.5 litres of 4.5% apple cider vinegar. So this concludes our videos. And once this is settled out a bit over the next day or two, I'm just going to bottle it probably on the weekend, and it's going to be ready for use. And at 4.5%, that is quite capable of being used for any use, including preserving. In New Zealand, most of our vinegar is 4 to 4.2%, and people use it for preserving perfectly fine. I know in the US, they say it must be a minimum of 5%, but hey, it works. No one really gets sick over here anyway, so, and we don't generally do the water bath canning like what the Americans do. So this is still acceptable for preserving, hair washing, drinking, whatever you want to do with your vinegar. So I hope these videos have increased your knowledge, and I hope you use these as an impetus to give making your own vinegar a go, because it's definitely worthwhile. Thanks for watching, folks, and look out for future videos.